Welcome in, college football fans. Welcome to the college football show that you've been missing. It's the first and long college football show. We've got your week 5 reactions. I'm your co-host, Marcus. That's your other co-host, Mason. I always get the direction wrong. Mason, how you doing tonight?
Good, man. Ready for take two after some technical difficulties on our first take. If you happen to be our one fan that joined us, welcome back. If not, if you're new to the show, welcome to the show. We had an interesting week 5, I would say, and it kind of played out in some ways as we kind of expected, but I thought it was pretty telling. There were some upsets. There were some games that didn't go quite like we saw, like we planned, like we bet towards and gave our predictions on. But
Yeah.
ultimately, it was an exciting week per usual, and
Yeah,
I'm excited to get into it with you.
the betting part of it wasn't so great. We didn't have trouble picking winners and losers. Most of the favorites ended up, pulling it out. I had an underdog pick to win, so of course, obviously, that was inaccurate there, and that's in the case of Utah. So we'll get to that shortly. But the favorites did their thing, but it was definitely a situation where there were some close games, man. Some teams got a little scare put into them. We got to see some teams get tested that we didn't think would get tested. Teams that were double digit favorites, and it was a tough weekend as far as those lines go. But let's get into it without any more further ado. Let me pull up my list here. Let's go with Utah State at Oregon State first. That was the game that was on Friday, and there were several games on Friday, but this was the ranked matchup that was on Friday. Tell me what you thought about that one real quick, and I'll give you my take as I go grab something right here that I already noticed that I forgot.
Some notes might help you there. No. All right. So for Utah and Oregon State, watching this game, it was a fun game to have on Friday night. First of all, we don't usually get a treat like that, to have some good Pac-12 action out there. But I thought that this game was really almost as expected, right? You look at the game. Let me pull the score up here to make sure that I've got it right. But it was a defensive battle overall. I mean, that's about what we expected. 21-7, Oregon State was able to pull out the win, and they really did it on the ground, which was to be expected. But I thought DJU 204 yards. It's about what I think Vegas picked him to have. It's about 204 yards or so. So it was kind of a predictable game in some ways. No Cam Rising in this game. Everybody thought that he may come in and kind of save the day, but instead it was Nate Johnson, and it was a bad version of Nate Johnson this week. I don't know if you would say that Oregon State made him look that bad, or if he just had a bad game. But 8 of 23 for 101 yards. He does have a touchdown, but that is about as bad as it gets. QBR was a 9.8, so it was really bad, and people were hollering for Bryson Barnes. He came in, did some good things, but it was too little, too late at that point. And yeah, Utah ends up falling 21-7 to Oregon State.
Yeah, that was ugly, man. And Utah was one, unfortunately, was one of my best bets. And we kind of learned, I think, about Utah and Florida both this week, and it was unfortunate that we had to learn those both at the same time because they played each other week 1.
Yeah.
And it's like, if any of you deer hunt, now I know not everybody does that, but down here in the South, a lot of people go deer hunting. It's like when you go hunting and you see two deer next to each other, right? It's like, man, it's hard to tell how big they are if they're both the same size. Like it's like they look like two regular deer, and then you shoot one, and you're like, wow, that's like way smaller than I thought it was. Well, that was there was some ground shrinkage on Utah and Florida this week as we figured out that these two offenses are inept. I mean, they are
Yeah.
absolutely just inept. And
And I don't know how much Cam Rising's gonna just put his offense on his back and carry
yeah,
this team to the promised land. I don't see that happening.
no, I don't either, man. I mean, we can look at these stats or whatever, but I mean, dude, it was just it was an embarrassment. I mean, what the strength of their offense has been running the football, but they're just way too one dimensional. It's way too predictable. They don't have anybody I mean, Bryson Barnes comes in and it looks like he's going to be all right, and he throws a pick. They just don't have a quarterback. And even if they do have a quarterback, I don't think they have any playmakers at wide receiver at Utah. So I
Yeah.
they finally take a conference loss in a situation where it kind of made sense for them to. Both of them are 1-1 in the conference, Utah and Oregon State at this point. So, you know, the I don't know what you would want to call it. The casualties have already began for the Pac-12 here, as both of these teams have taken a loss, and I don't think things are looking good for Utah, man. This team, there's no way this version of this team is winning the Pac-12 this year. It's not happening. It looks like the two in a row is about where it's going to stop. Don't you think?
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, this just looks like a down year for Utah, unfortunately. When the rest of the Pac-12 is up and you're looking for, you know, a little bit more parity in the Pac-12, I think that you kind of got that from the rest of the league, and then Utah took a step down this year. It's unfortunate to see. I'd like to see, Washington at its best versus Utah at its best, but maybe instead we're getting Washington versus Oregon, and as good as this Pac-12 is, I think you kind of have to count Utah. They're kind of a middle tier team in the Pac-12 right now.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. And I think it's partly the rest of the conference catching up with them, and I think partly it's a down year for Utah. I mean, they've obviously had a couple good years in a row, and I don't think they're going to have a losing season or anything like that. But Kyle Whittingham has got his work cut out for him this year with this offense right here. Not looking good, but. Anyway, Oregon State takes care of business. Oh, we got a advertisement going on in my ear. Sorry about that. All right, USC at Colorado. So this one was a little bit different story, huh? I don't think either one of these offenses really had a hard time whenever you look at it at the end of the day. Now, Colorado was very slow getting started and didn't score much in the first half at all, but then USC let them back in the game, and they honestly made it pretty close at the end of this thing. This was a really bad showing by the USC defense, and yet again, I'm under the assumption and opinion, I guess, that they don't really care about playing defense. Man. Lincoln Riley, after this game, just kind of hem-hawing about it. And didn't really seem to mind a whole lot. So I don't know, man. I don't know what to think about this team. I was just kind of starting to turn a corner on this team, maybe a little bit. Kind of didn't like some things I saw the week before with USC against Arizona State. Obviously, that was way too close of a game for comfort. And then they made me feel pretty good about it. They made me turn my TV to another game this past Saturday, and then lo and behold, they give up 27 points in the second half, and we got a ball game on our hands. What did you think about the Trojans 48 and the Colorado Buffs 41 to end it?
Yeah, I mean they're up 34-14 at halftime, and you're thinking easy cover, turn the channel, right? Like you said, we don't need to pay attention to this game anymore. let's just worry about other games. Let's try to find something competitive in this noon slate. And so, lo and behold, I mean, you get around to the 3:30 games and you do a score check and you find out that the same game's still going on, and it's pretty close. So
Yeah.
they kind of had a chance. They're late, but at the same time, I don't think, going back and watching the highlights, I don't think that there was ever any chance statistically that Colorado could win this game. But at the same time, what I saw from USC is an inability to put this team away. And we saw Oregon the week prior, they had their backups in, and they weren't scoring on their backups, So Caleb Williams played this entire game, and they were only able to win by 7 points. So
yeah,
it's not a great showing for USC. And at the end of the week, I mean, look, at the end of the day, they ended up winning this game, right? Can you have a bad win? Yeah, but they did find a way to win and hold on the road against a team that's very, very much hyped up. I don't know. I'm not going to give them credit, but I'm not going to bash them too hard. We know what they are on defense, and we know what they are on offense. I expected a little bit more than 48 against Colorado's defense, but as far as the defensive showing, this is about what I expected. I mean, I figured Colorado could put up 28 to 35, and they ended up with a little bit more than that, but it doesn't really change my opinion of USC, which already had them in the top 10 because of such a great offense, but I don't think that they're a playoff contender, and so it doesn't move the needle much for me if I'm really kind of breaking it down as best I can. I just don't see it moving the needle much.
Well, I guess this just really kind of shows where we're at with this defense. But we saw what Oregon did to Colorado. They held them down 60 minutes, and so Southern Cal couldn't do that. And I would have understood only scoring 14 points in the second half if you're putting in your backup quarterback and things like that. I mean, Colorado outgained Southern Cal in this game, Mason. I mean, and I just, if that's what you're really good at is offense, well, then by God, you better not take your foot off the throttle, because if this was a better team, it really any of the top 10 teams, if USC played them on Saturday, they'd have lost because they were not ready to play. And the sideline energy is way too damn lax over there, man. I really just, it gets under my skin the way that Lincoln Riley runs his teams and the way that they just ignore one half of the football. I really can't stand it, man. And his nonchalant attitude towards it, it's just another version of a Lincoln Riley team. And I know we talk about it all the time, but I can't help it because they're in the top 10 and I got to talk about them, but I just can't stand this style of football. It could be further from what I love about the game of football. But with all that being said, I mean, Colorado, I mean, this Omarion Miller just absolutely tore USC up. 7 receptions, 196 yards. Look, everybody said all week that Colorado can't run the damn football. Well, guess what? They ran the football this week. They ran the football against USC. They sure did. The first team that they've been able to run the football worth a damn against, and it's a top 10 football team. It was just kind of an embarrassment. But, hey, I think USC is just happy to be back in the light of things, and I think they'd be happy if they could just get Caleb Williams another Heisman, and if that's what they're looking to do, then so be it. He is an outstanding football player, and I love watching him play. I just hate to see his career waste with no defense on the other side of the ball and never have an actual meaningful win around Christmas time every year. He's never had one, and I don't think he ever will, man. I don't think he ever will. Let's keep it moving now that I've got my blood pressure up. Florida at Kentucky. Whoa, buddy. The Florida Gators Florida. What the hell? What happened here now? Let me pull this thing up. I know I ain't reading this right on my notes here because I think that first number is 3 on the Russian yards there. Let me see. Oh my gosh. 329 yards rushing. Kentucky averaged 9.1 yards per carry. I mean, who the heck saw this coming? Reverend Ray Davis Sr., please come to center stage, sir. You are the player of the week for sure in the SEC. My goodness gracious. Did you get – well, I know you got to lay some eyes on this because we did together. You came over to my house and we were watching this bad boy.
Yep.
What did you think about Kentucky running roughshod on the Gators this weekend, man?
Man, it was a tough showing for I mean, Kentucky ran all over Florida. And you see the stats there on your screen. I mean, 203 yards from one player, if I'm reading that correctly. So
280 rushing.
80, okay.
From 280 yards. Yeah, let me give Ray Davis his moment here. 26 carries, 280 yards rushing, an average of 10.8 per carry, and 3 tutties, buddy, with a long of 75. I mean,
unreal.
Say his name, brother. Say his name.
I haven't seen an offensive rushing performance by one player like that probably since Ibrahim for Minnesota last year. You know, it kind of gave me a vibe, although I think Ibrahim did it on like multiple occasions. He was a different kind of animal, but yeah, but you know, for Kentucky, this was very promising, you know, very eye-opening. There were doubts coming into this game about their offense, and Kentucky's not a bad, or excuse me, Florida's not a bad defense. It's not like they did this to Vanderbilt. You know what I mean? Florida had the best defense for total yards. They were the best defense, and this is a Florida team that's already faced Tennessee, right? Beat Tennessee. So, you know, it's not like they haven't played anybody. So their defense just looks statistically great. They faced Utah, which again, we already talked about that. But I think Kentucky just played an offensive scheme that really challenged Florida, and they weren't able to answer the challenge. You know, Devin Leary had 19 pass attempts, right? They came into this game knowing that they were going to run the ball, and they found the holes. They did what they needed to do. I still have some questions about Kentucky's offense. They will really be tested this coming week, coming up, you know, in week 6 against Georgia. They're really going to be tested, and maybe running the ball is the way to go against Georgia. Auburn certainly saw some success from that, at least from the quarterback. So maybe Kentucky takes a little bit of that game plan into this. But as far as this game goes, you know, Florida, Graham Mertz he was 25 of 30. I mean, 30 pass attempts is really high for Florida and for Graham Mertz. Obviously, they're playing from behind, so you expect that number to have a bit of an uptick. But you know, he throws short yardage passes, so it's not like
exactly.
You know, yeah, he's not going deep, you know, very much. But yeah, I just think that it kind of showed. I feel like Florida kind of had the curtains pulled back on them a little bit, you know, and kind of showed a little bit too much, you know, and revealed a little too much. You know, they're going to be, you know, taken off the air soon because they're showing a little too much skin there, you know. So,
well, I tell you, we like I said, we figured out about Utah at the same time we figured out about Florida, and that's really what threw me off the trail on both of these teams early on in the year. And now I think we see a little bit more of what they're about. Florida's defense is going to look really good whenever one of your games is against Utah. And that was a game that was a loss, but statistically it helped them out a ton because Utah didn't do a whole heck of a lot in the way of offense to win that game to begin with. And then now to see this Utah team, and I understand people have tape on them and things like that now, so maybe there's less guessing game going on, but the fact that Florida gave up 20-something points to Utah, to begin with, is alarming. So, and now we know that, and now we can kind of put that in our heads. Graham Mertz continues to throw the ball for like 80% completion rate. Look, I gotta tell you, the guy's really doing what they're asking him to do. I don't know that they've got downfield threats that if they had somebody that was going downfield a lot, that they were going to be able to, be successful anyway. So I think he's doing exactly what he is being asked to do. And this game should have been exactly what Florida wanted. This game was exactly the style game that Florida wanted to play.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, am I wrong on that? I mean, Sunbelt Billy wants to play. He wants to run the football and stop the run. And that's, so far this year, that's what this Florida Gators team had done. And the difference was, in the Tennessee game, they were able to rush the ball successfully. And in this game, they rushed for 69 yards. So that credit to that Kentucky defensive line and that front seven. They did the damn thing. They played wide all day. Florida does throw the ball out to the boundary a lot to try to get one-on-ones and kind of an extension of the run game there. Kudos to Kentucky. Florida Gator fans all week were talking about how they were going to kick Kentucky's ass, and then they were going to be able to play, I think it's Vandy next week or something like that, and then they were going to be ready to take Georgia out. Well, guess what? Kentucky's the one who ends up emerging victorious and will be undefeated going to Athens next week. And I can't wait to break that game down later this week. Glad we're not picking today because I got to go look some more at this, man, because Kentucky, wow, they had some success this past Saturday, and probably one of the most surprising outcomes of any of the games, I think. As this was an upset, obviously, Florida was ranked in the AP, and Florida, for all intents and purposes, from this point on, will be out of the top 25. So, Florida Gators, we hardly knew you this year. We hardly knew you. Let's keep it moving here. That just blew my mind, though. And Ray Davis Sr., I mean, you couldn't. I don't know where he's from. I'm going to figure it out. I want to know more about this here guy. Doesn't that just sound like the name of a pastor down the road at the Episcopal Church, out in the country? Honorable Reverend Ray Davis Sr. Just great. I love it. Story that.
Oh Lord, like run the ball. Run the ball. Oh Lord. That's Ray Davis there.
Ray Davis Sr. I just thought it was funny that they had Senior on there, so I guess he's got a Junior running around. Yeah. I'm sure Junior enjoyed watching Daddy take care of them Gators and wrestle that Gator into submission, son. Kansas at Texas. We'll kind of go over this one maybe quicker because this one wasn't very surprising, I guess. The most surprising part about this is the fact that Jason Bean ended up playing quarterback, and I think it's safe to say that he was not ready for this. He literally, Daniels, I guess, warmed up and his back was tight and said, "Nah, man, got it." So I don't know, man. That really sucked. For anybody that was betting on the game, or in our case, we had bet on some of his stats and things like that for fantasy. Texas just comes out here and they kind of took them a minute to take over the game and do their thing. But man, they really just take care of business and do what a really good team does. And they just put this team out of their misery. After halftime, they were up 13-7 at half, and then just came out and put it on them. 13 in the third, 14 in the fourth to win 40-14. Quentin Ewers continues to do his thing. Pretty solid day there. Jonathan Brooks has emerged as the RB1, well, without a doubt. 218 yards in this one. Kansas is dealing with some of the same issues on defense that they've dealt with in the past. They can't stop the run, and pretty leaky defense all the way around. As they gave up, gosh, well, it's got to be 600 yards here from what I'm looking at. Let's go to team stats. I mean, 660 yards to 200 total yards. Pretty anemic performance for the Kansas Jayhawks. Hey, you there, Mason?
Yeah, I was losing you there. You were starting to cut out. I think ESPN maybe hacking our signal here and causing some issues. It seems like whenever you go to use ESPN, it's breaking you up a little bit there. But yeah, I mean, in this game, it sucks we didn't get to see Jalen Daniels because I think it would have been a more competitive game. But ultimately, when I look at Texas and you see what they did on offense, they had 325 yards passing, 336 yards rushing. They're a complete and balanced offense, and they've got a defense that can complement them and kind of hold that offense from Kansas off long enough to get Texas's offense going. So they're a very well built team and very balanced overall. They got Sanders one catch. I know Sanders went out with an injury. I don't know if he ever was able to return from that or not, but yeah, I mean, give Texas's defense some credit. They were stopping the run really well. They obviously affected Bean. I mean, the guy he threw for like 48% or something like that. So poor guy was not up to the challenge. And Texas, I mean, they're a top 3 team, in my pick, and they look like a real contender, and they're doing it against good talent. One of the more impressive teams so far this season that we've got to see face good talent. So, I keep having good things to say about Texas. So this was another strong showing from them.
Well, later this week, we're going to be putting together our top 25s. And I have to tell you, man, I think I'm going to be, we'll see. I'm not committing, but I think I'm going to be moving Texas up. What do you think? I mean, I think this is too many. I mean, they've obviously won every game they've played. They beat Alabama on the road, and I mean, they just took care of business here against a ranked Kansas team. Yeah. What else do they? I mean, what else can they really do at this point? I think that I don't think number 1 ranking is out of the question.
No, right? If you put Texas at number 1, nobody's gonna argue with you. You'd be in based on the AP voters. I think about 30% of them had Texas at number 1. So you're in a strong minority, I guess. And I don't think that there's anything to turn your nose up to if you want to put Texas up there, especially this week. They got Oklahoma. They're able to get that win. Yeah, absolutely. I think they're the number 1 team.
They beat Oklahoma. They're definitely number 1. Nobody will be able to even argue, I wouldn't think.
To further that point, I mean, I just think that this win was the best win this weekend for a top 10 team, especially. But I think that this set them up in that top tier of teams, and they're kind of in a space of their own in a way with, being a team that's consistently beaten top 25 programs and done so convincingly. They had, I think, one game this year that they fell down and, kind of played down to their opponent's level. But outside of that, they've beaten the good teams, and then they've beaten a really good Kansas team handedly. So I don't mind putting them in at the number 1 spot at all, and it could happen. I haven't really broken it down yet, but we'll get to that later on in the week.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think I'm considering it, and I think that was a really good win for Texas, no doubt. One of the best of the top 10, as you said. Let's move into the UGA at Auburn game. In some ways, I think this game went how we thought. It was low scoring, as we thought. Georgia's offense hasn't really popped off at all this year, other than against cupcake teams. Auburn doesn't have a passing offense at all. Georgia, I felt like was caught by surprise. I know they were, the way that Peyton Thorne ran the football in this game. The read option game didn't look like something Georgia practiced a whole lot. Several times it felt like certain guys didn't know who had outside contain, who had inside man, and Peyton Thorne was feeling it. The Auburn crowd was feeling it. Did you see that the last 3 number 1 teams to come into Auburn, they've beat them all. So Georgia broke the streak. That would have been the 4th in a row. Very, very tough environment to get it done. And if you want to go in there and get it done and without problems, you have to do it in the first half. You got to take Auburn out of the game to get the crowd out of the game. And Georgia did not do that. This was a game all the way down until the 4th quarter. With about 2 minutes and 40 seconds, I believe. Carson Beck hits Brock Bowers for about a 40-yard reception or so, and for a touchdown. This was it really was kind of a thriller there to the end. I guess nobody was obviously expecting it to be this close of a game. What did you think about the game, and where do you think Georgia goes from here? Is this a turning point for UGA, or is this what we're going to see more of as the year goes on? What do you think?
Well, I think it's more of the same from Georgia. A slow start, and then they kind of pick things up. And what you said just kind of struck a chord with me, and it felt like deja vu, because we've been saying this really every game so far this year for Georgia is, do they figure something out in that second half, and now they're going to start playing this way, on offense and all, or is it going to be more of the same? Well, so far it's been more of the same. So as much as we want to, hope that Georgia has turned a corner on offense and figured something out, it seems like the slow starts are here to stay. And so it really kind of falls on the defense to get the stops early. Can the defense keep much like what we just talked about with Texas? They were able to hold Kansas while the offense got going, and once they got going, they didn't stop. So, the turnovers played a lot in this game. Watching this game, I never felt like Georgia was going to lose it, but they had 2 turnovers that ended up resulting in 14 of these points. Almost had another one on the punt that Mekhi Muse muffed and was able to get back on it. That really would have turned the game. But you take those two plays out, and this is a 27-6 win for Georgia, and probably more than that, because Georgia was driving at that time of the fumble. So maybe it's a 35-6 win, which would be a lot more like what we were expecting from Georgia. So a couple of plays here and there that kind of went Auburn's way, that bounced their way, and you've got yourself a ball game, and that's football. That's kind of how it happens. And I don't think that from a power rating perspective, I move Georgia down because of that. I think that even with the mistakes, Georgia was able to persevere, get the ball to their tight end late. Brock Bowers has 121 yards in the 4th quarter alone, and that ended up being the difference. Brock Bowers, I saw Josh Pate tweeted out, Brock Bowers is the number 1 team in America, and it makes sense. He looked like an absolute freak. He looked like an absolute freak, in this game. I think he should be, I think that Brock Bowers should be more represented in the Heisman hunt, especially after the past 2 weeks where he's obviously healthy. Maybe you see that if he goes off for another, 100+ yards and a couple of touchdowns against Kentucky, maybe he starts getting some mentions. But with this schedule, I think it's going to be tough to get a tight end, to New York, let alone winning a Heisman. But he's definitely the best player, in my opinion, so far this year in the country. And that's kind of because Marvin Harrison has had some injuries. But, I think that those two are 1A and 1B if you really break it down.
Yeah. Well, this game felt a little bit different with the offense in the fact that as you said, there was turnovers that Auburn turned into points, and I don't. We haven't seen that a ton this year. So yeah, we set up Auburn with two short fields for 14 points, and really just about come back to bite Georgia. But I was very happy with how Carson Beck responded whenever the pressure was turned up, because he was automatic on third down. Lad McConkey came in and caught some big third down passes. Brock Bowers obviously had a humongous day, as the man is unstoppable. Um, yeah, and the best team in America, I don't know if the Georgia Bulldogs are that. I know Brock Bowers isn't by himself. Josh Pate, that was, Josh must be. I think Josh is an Auburn fan, obviously. I know he's from that area down there, but nonetheless, this game I didn't feel like Georgia was going to lose it, but boy, there at the end, it was definitely made me nervous for Carson Beck, who was making his first road SEC start in an environment like this. Pretty unbelievable to be able to go down there and take care of that, and something that we really haven't seen out of first year quarterbacks at UGA in a long time, honestly.
Yeah.
So Carson Beck continues to do his thing, and we can't turn the ball over and expect to win against good teams. Luckily, Auburn, I don't think, is a very good team. They don't. I mean, Auburn threw for like 88 yards in this game. You're not going to be able to beat UGA like that, I don't think, 9 times out of 10. But UGA's got some work to do. This team isn't as good as the last 2 years. It's pretty clear.
No.
I mean, it is what it is. But
I don't think that
no
there is a
great
team. Yeah, exactly. That was going to be my point. I don't think that you have to be as good as Georgia was the past 2 years to win the national championship this year.
And
I think that, Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State are all worse than they were last year. So, and those are the 3 heavy hitters. I don't think that Michigan is worse than they were last year, but Michigan lost to TCU last year. So
yeah.
I don't think that's saying a lot. So, to be determined on Michigan. I'm still bitter that Michigan has such a weak schedule, even though Georgia's isn't that much better. But anyways, Michigan faces Minnesota next week. That's their biggest game of the season so far. So
yeah, well, Michigan is doing to themselves the same thing they did last year, and they're just playing whatever style of game they want to play, and not working on things that they're actually going to need whenever they get in a good game. And maybe they beat these other Big Ten teams, but when they get to the playoff, they're going to have a hard time if they do. Let's don't get on the Michigan rant. They don't deserve us to talk about them because they didn't have a big game this weekend. So let's keep it moving. LSU at Ole Miss. This game was easily the craziest game of the year. There's no doubt about that. Who saw this coming? I guess nobody, considering the over-under was 67 and they scored over 100 points.
Yeah.
Hey, look, obviously both quarterbacks played really well in this game. Obviously, you get, over 1,000, yards of offense in this one. I'm going to pull up the stats for me to look at here in just a second. But what? I would
I'm
love.
getting them pulled up on my end too. So just I'm trying to share that.
Are you wanting to share it on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So where did the defenses go here? I guess they went off for hot dogs at halftime and never came back because, I knew this. I knew that LSU secondary was going to keep them from. I knew it was going to keep them from winning a title, but I didn't think it was going to be, I didn't think it was going to be something that was going to doom them to this extent. My God, man, this was just horrible defense. Just silly amount of offense here. And LSU shows their weakness in this game, and Lane Kiffin gets the biggest win than he's ever had at Ole Miss. I was not going to be betting on Ole Miss until Lane Kiffin showed me that he could win a big game. And up until Saturday, that had not happened. But congratulations to Ole Miss Rebels. They take down the LSU Tigers, and LSU fans are not going to stand for this kind of defense, man. This is a team that prides themselves on DBs and secondary defense. This didn't look like DBU out there, did it?
No, absolutely not. And LSU's been griping about Major Burns, telling Georgia to take him back, and he obviously didn't have a very good game again. I mean, he made a couple of plays, but this was just wild. I was watching the highlights on this, and it goes to halftime, and I'm like, wow, it's only halftime. They've scored like 70 points already, and it's halftime.
Yeah.
It was absolutely a thriller. Not much defense is being played in the SEC these days, it seems, and it's a bit weird. I think that Alabama might have the best defense in the SEC, but even they're getting scored on these days. And I don't know why I didn't see this coming. I don't know why I didn't bet the over on this game. When you look at it, LSU's defense has been lackluster so far. I think what surprised me the most about this game is, Ole Miss has struggled to run the football all year, and they faced this terrible LSU defense. Now that's my read on the defense. It wasn't before this game necessarily, but now I'm looking at this defense and saying, wow, they're pretty bad. And they gave up 317 yards on the ground to Ole Miss, and I just didn't expect that to happen. I thought that Wingo and Mason Smith would be able to handle the Rebels up front, and apparently not. That was a big surprise. And the other surprise too is that, if you told me before the game started that that Daniels is going to account for more than 500 yards by himself, I'm asking how much did LSU win by? That's all I'm trying to figure out. And the fact that didn't happen is just it really just goes to show you how bad this defense is. Ole Miss has done some things well and on offense, but they're not USC, or Washington. I mean, they haven't been that great of an offense. So, for them to come out and put up 55 points on LSU, I mean, that's embarrassing. And now I'm looking at LSU and I'm saying, gosh, you guys are really going to struggle with Bama. If you guys can't defend the run against Ole Miss, that Alabama offensive line is going to have their way with LSU up front. I don't think that LSU will be able to beat Bama after that performance. It'll be a good game. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Bama by 50 or anything like that, but I think now I preseason I was giving the edge to LSU, and now I'm like, Bama's probably a little bit better. They're probably this is probably a mismatch for LSU.
When we do break down that game, and we've got that game coming up, I'm not sure when, but I'm not sure. I don't know. I have to see it. I got to look at this a little bit more, look into it. But is Jalen Milroe going to be able to take advantage of a really poor secondary in this situation? I don't know, and I'm kind of rhetorically asking the question. But I want to play something real quick that we talked about in the preseason, and let's see how it resonates with LSU here. Let me see if I can play this real quick.
Jimbo won't tell you anything. Brian Kelly just pretty much told you flat out, hey, our weakness is our secondary. We took, elite teams don't take 12 guys in the transfer portal, and we did, and they're all on defense. And that's not what elite teams do. We've got a good team, and high school recruiting has got to be more of a focus for if you're going to be elite, if you're going to be a championship winning team. And he is dead right.
How about that? So
yep.
That we talked about this. That was before the season even started. I'm actually wearing the same damn shirt. How about that? But that was months ago in the preseason. We're talking about this secondary and how many transfers they took. Well, it was pretty damn evident. They just, I mean, they took one right out there on the 50-yard line, and we all had to look at it. But you know what? It was really entertaining. It was a very fun game, and I can appreciate it from that aspect. But I don't think LSU fans are completely thrilled about it. I'm sure the fun part of it has wore off at this point, and they're wondering where their defense went. Just very, very puzzling. And LSU just continues to be up and down, very inconsistent, just like they were last year. Very, very, very hard to predict. But Ole Miss, does everything they need to do on offense. And as Lane Kiffin said at the end of the game, we scored more points than they did. And that's all that this boiled down to. And that's really all you can say about that. Let's move on.
Hold on 1 second. Kudos to Lane Kiffin. We questioned him in our preview of this. His ability to win the big game. This is kind of his big win, against LSU. Yeah. And pat yourself on the back. I mean, it was a big win. I don't think LSU's as good as I think that they were overhyped for what they will be at the end of the year, right? So maybe in hindsight, it's like, it's an okay win, against a down LSU team. But at the time of recording this, I think it's a pretty big win for Lane Kiffin. So congrats.
Yeah. Well, we said in the pregame, that we needed to see him win a big game before we're going to bet on him to win a big game. And I think that that's fair. And we also said that if he did win, it'd be his biggest win. And I also think that is very much true. And this was a big win. This was a very big win. As Ole Miss now sits with just one loss in the SEC, they've got a head-to-head win over LSU, so they've got them in the headlock. And we'll see what Alabama does from here on out. But this SEC West, you just don't know. You just don't know. Anything can happen. LSU can beat any team any weekend. Alabama's got to play Texas A&M. I think that's going to be a tough game for Alabama. I think that Texas A&M and LSU is going to be a tough game for LSU and Texas A&M. It's going to try both of those teams pretty hard. So we still got some sorting out to do over there, but went a little ways in figuring out this weekend. Notre Dame at Duke. Poor old Dukies. I was feeling it, man. I just knew Duke had this thing. And then I'm sitting there thinking about my bet, and I'm thinking, well, dang, they could probably just, even if Notre Dame goes down here and kicks this field goal, I'm good. I'm still going to cover. Notre Dame will win, and that's going to suck for Duke, but I'll still get to cover. Nah, just go on and give them a daggum touchdown right there at the end of the game, and just blew up my cover and kind of didn't put the cap on it for the night. Washington did that for me, but just kind of put a cap on a bad Saturday of betting the spreads. But boy, this was it was a great defensive game. 2 weeks in a row, Notre Dame is in a defensive slugfest, and they figured out a way to get it done on this one. Man, there was some bad officiating going on in this. I don't even think if everybody realized what happened. I know a lot of the other college football shows didn't, and I know why. It's because people who watch a bunch of games at a time with different screens, they'll mute the screens, right? And they'll maybe turn the volume on one that they want to watch. Well, that punt that went over the pylon, that was not a reviewable play. So the referees went and looked at the camera. Well, that's not a reviewable play. You're not allowed to look at the camera for that. So they spotted Duke 19 yards on that punt on the drive where they went and scored that touchdown. So had Duke held on and won that game, they would have been spotted the 19 yards on the drive they scored the touchdown on, which they would have had the ball on the 1, which is where they ruled the ball out, and then reviewed it and brought it out to the 20 or 25 or whatever. So that really was a bad mess up as far as the refereeing goes. But Notre Dame, they get away with the win. I mean, they keep their playoff chances alive just barely, and hopefully Riley Leonard is going to be all right after his injury. We'll probably know more tomorrow. I hope it's just not as bad as it. I hope it's not as bad as it looks.
Well,
But
there
it
there
didn't
was
look good.
a report an hour ago, and it said that it was a high ankle sprain, and he could return by the end of the month. So
That's
going to be out
great
for a few
news.
weeks, I think, undoubtedly, but probably expected back early part of November, I would think.
That's great news. Yep. Yep. Yeah, I mean, Riley Leonard is not some kind of like unbelievable thrower of the football, or he's not a gifted passer. He can throw it, but he's not a gifted passer. That's not all his game. His game is in the run game, and he did his thing in the run game, and he is very, very exciting to watch. His numbers are always. I think he's always right around 50% completion. Um, he's going to throw for around 150 yards a game, and he's going to run for about 100 or 150. This Duke defense has got a really, really deep defensive line, and they really flexed their muscles in this game and held Notre Dame down for the majority of this game, really until the end, and just didn't have enough in the tank to get it done. Old head coach over there he was all up in his emotions after this one, man. He really thought that they had won this game, and it would have been the biggest win in Duke history, undoubtedly.
Yeah.
Really, really hated it for that home fan crowd there. That was, boy, they were really into it and had a raucous environment going. What did you think about this one?
Well,
We love our house.
It's on a great
going
block.
back and watching it,
Tree Line
really,
Streets.
The
the
neighbors are
fake
observant.
punt
And
on the first
we'll go
drive
back and
ended
sell-
up winning Notre Dame this football game. Because
Live in a
that
house.
extended the
It's Londa,
drive.
Sheila,
They
and
ended up
Elisa.
scoring a touchdown off of that. Had they not scored that touchdown, they're not winning this game. I mean, almost undoubtedly. So I thought that was kind of, in hindsight, that was a pretty important play. Whereas when the game started, you may not kind of think of it to be that important or mean that much. I definitely thought that there would be more points scored in this game. But another takeaway for me is Mitchell Evans, the tight end, is a real matchup problem. Guy's a playmaker. Once again, Notre Dame has a really good tight end. So it seems like they
he is
just
good. I really like him.
yeah, they just seem to grow on trees over there, I guess. Also, special teams, 2 missed field goals from Duke. Yikes. Game plays out a lot differently if they make those field goals. I mean, granted they lost by 7, so I guess it wouldn't have made that much of a difference, but it just kind of shows you like there were some mistakes made, and then you already mentioned Estime kind of screwed up our cover. We won't fault him too much for that. He's a really good back, y'all. And then both defenses look solid.
Yeah.
I think that I wonder how much the experience that Notre Dame had last week played into their mentality going into this week, or I guess in the game, kind of their comfort level of being down, late and having to come back and get a drive and putting Sam Hartman really put the team on his back with that 4th and 16. He's able to convert with his legs.
Yeah, he did.
I just think that they were a lot more composed than maybe they would have been had they not had that experience 1 week ago, where they were let down, thought they were going to win the game and were really let down. So that was a positive. I think that it was a good boost for them. I also think that Notre Dame might have a pretty bad offense. Credit Duke's defense for sure, but still, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. Call me crazy. I just don't think that putting up 21 points is really, going to set the world on fire or anything like that. I mean, I think that they're really relying on their defense right now, and it's winning them a lot of games and keeping them in a lot of games. But they did have some people out, but at the same time, maybe we're a little bit too high on Notre Dame, and at least on offense. I still haven't
Yeah.
seen them schematically be that much of a threat, and I still want to see them rely a little bit more on Sam Hartman. He did have 30 attempts this game, but only completed 15 of those. So, yeah, I'd like to see a little bit more out of their offense. Defense looks outstanding, but they're still a work in progress.
Well, there's a lot of Notre Dame fans that'll tell you that maybe Notre Dame skimped out a little bit on the offensive coordinator job whenever Freeman came in.
Yeah.
Probably maybe should have invested a little bit more money there. But that's another conversation for a whole nother show. But I agree with you. Notre Dame is lacking playmakers on offense. Audrey Estime is awesome, but and Sam Hartman is obviously really good. But yeah, I don't see the threats on the outside at all, and I don't see them scheming up the guys that they've got. I totally 100% agree with you, and I think you nailed it there. So, look, this is not a conference loss for Duke. So, as much as Notre Dame wants to act like they're in the ACC and wants to tell the ACC what to do and shit like that, like they have nothing to do with that. So Duke doesn't have a conference loss here, and I think they are very much still in the running to make it to Charlotte this year. So I'm going to keep my eye on this team. I'll see what this means for Riley Leonard and their schedule going forward. Let's take a look at this one right here. South Carolina at Tennessee. Tennessee did their thing. They took care of business against South Carolina. Look, I don't really have a ton on this game. This was pretty run-of-the-mill stuff. I mean, I guess Tennessee fans are probably pretty relieved, after they put a lot of eggs in this basket of this game right here after last year. Gave up 63 points to South Carolina, and the environment there at Neyland Stadium was just absolutely electric, as it is with any night game that goes on there. Speaking from somebody who's been there, just a great college football environment. As long as you're not wearing this color red right here, you're gonna really enjoy the crowd. What did you think about this one, and what do you think this means for Tennessee? I feel like we're getting different signals from Tennessee. Obviously, are with the Florida loss and then this win. What do you make of all this?
Well, I mean, when you break it down, I'm trying to get these stats pulled up here, but when you look at the stats, I mean, they really limited Spencer Rattler in a way that no other team has been able to do, not even Georgia. Spencer Rattler ended up, he was 24 for 35, which is a pretty good average, but only 169 yards, 4.8 per attempt. That's not getting it done. 33.6 QBR. I think that they really just did a great job of affecting Spencer Rattler, and that was kind of the name of the game. I'm trying to go down now and see. They ended up with 6 sacks. Okay, so that's where you're seeing a lot of that effect come from. A lot of pass rush that you see from Tennessee, and
they were, and Tennessee was really good on third down too. South Carolina really struggled there, and I mean, anytime you go 2 of 15 on third down and you've only got 11 first downs in the game, you're in for a long one. Let's see, 132 yards.
And
rushing.
the other thing is they limited Xavier Leggett.
Right. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good. Yeah, so you take away Rattler, you take away Leggett, and that is pretty much the South Carolina offense, right? So I think that Tennessee did a great job of playing takeaway. And then on the other side, Squirrel White gets involved. They finally get him involved in the passing game. They end up with 238 yards rushing, which we've come to expect from Tennessee. So, they kind of stay true to themselves, but a little bit. And, Joe Milton's 21 or 32 for as much gripe as people give him for having his notable accuracy issues. They were able to get him some plays. Looks like a lot of dinking and dunking as he ended up with 7.5 yards per attempt. So, or excuse me, an average of 7.5 yards per play. So, it's not like he was throwing it down deep, or anything like that. But yeah, give him a little bit of credit here. I still don't think that Tennessee's a top 25 team, but we'll kind of save that conversation for tomorrow, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you pull that up, it's making you skip out and stuff. So maybe we just need to read that on our own and announce it.
Yeah, we can do that.
So anyway, I think this was a good win for Tennessee. Obviously, the uniforms look good. My wife said so. I guess the uniforms looked really good for Tennessee. I don't give a damn about that type of stuff, but I guess the ladies do. So good job, Tennessee. You look good for the ladies, and got a good win over South Carolina. You want to maybe we can go through some of these other scores real quick, and I'll just kind of shout these out. Those are all the games that we gave a preview for and everything. So I'm going to go through the top 25 here. Fresno State crept into the top 25. They took care of business. They're not going to be in my top 25. Sorry. Missouri took care of business over Vanderbilt, 38-21. I don't know if you saw this, but Brady, that quarterback from Missouri, hit like 350 something pass attempts without an interception and set the SEC record. Pretty dang impressive. Didn't even know he was working on that record. So I thought that was really, really impressive. We talked about Kentucky, Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina. Oklahoma takes care of business against Iowa State. Oklahoma looked really good in this one, man. 50-20, they take out Iowa State. And Iowa State's not very good. I totally get that. But this is what you do to a team that's not very good. You squash them like a bug. Dylan Gabriel, 26 of 39, 366 yards, 9.4 average. Marcus Major did his thing as far as running the football for the most part. At 3.5 average isn't great, but that they're searching for an answer at running back at Oklahoma, and they're going to need to find it pretty quick. They need to scheme up some run game stuff this week as they've got Texas coming in, and I cannot wait to watch that game. Jalil Farouk does his thing, and Oklahoma takes care of Iowa State 50-20. And there's Mason. Moving on up the list here. Let's see here. Mississippi State, Alabama. Alabama takes care of Mississippi State 40-17. Road game for Alabama. Pretty run-of-the-mill stuff. Mississippi State is not good. And Alabama takes care of business. And look, you know what? As much as everybody dogged on Alabama, and that's what happens whenever you're in dynasty mode, and then you kind of take a little bit of a step back, or you might have a little bit of a misstep. Everybody overreacts. Well, Alabama's right where they need to be. They have no SEC losses. Everything is, and they lost to a team that I think a lot of people are going to vote number one, or definitely you're going to have everybody as in the top three at this point. So Alabama's in a great spot, really good spot there, and they take care of business in cowbell country. Oregon takes out Stanford 42-6. Bo Nix does his thing again. He's in the Heisman race, guys. Bo Nix, he continues on this pace. He'll be in New York. We'll take that to the bank, along with Shedeur and Caleb and Michael Penix. It's going to be a Pac-12 Heisman race. It really does seem like, and maybe a Big 12 guy mixed in there. Washington, Arizona. This game was a little too close for comfort at the end. Kind of like a backdoor cover type situation on this one. I'm gonna pull this back up here, and so I can at least look at it. gosh, it started off really good for Washington, and they held Arizona to 342 yards, but 31 points is just for Washington standard is not a great just not a great showing, and Arizona was able to keep the ball away from them with getting 27 first downs. So left a little bit to be desired, but if that's the worst that Washington's going to play this year, then that was a great week, to do it in, and they're going to be just fine, barring injuries.
And I'll tell you, Arizona had a great game plan. Taking Odunze out, taking Polk out of the game plan. Odunze had 65 yards on the day. We've come to expect him to get 100 plus. So they did a great job of kind of bracketing those receivers, limiting those receivers, and Penix, ended up with another 300 plus yard game, but didn't have any touchdown passes on the game. So I thought it was promising to see them adapt and say, okay, they're not giving us the pass here. So let's run it in. Penix took some shots downfield, was able to connect. And then at the end of the day, they just said, hey, let's punch it in. Let's punch it in. And they did it 4 times with 3 different running backs. So credit them for being a little bit more balanced on offense and not just relying on the pass like we've seen them do pretty much all season. They adapted, and it was pretty nice to see.
Yeah, and I think that's what it's going to take for a championship team to win a actual championship in 2023. You're going to have to be able to win in multiple ways, and you're going to be able to have to take advantage of a team's weakness and just play with what they're giving you on the field. And it was nice to see Washington run the ball well. That was a nice side of this team. If they can fuse those two things together, I think that they're going to continue their success this year in the Pac-12, and they are on track and on a collision course with some awesome teams in the next few weeks, and I can't wait to see it. Penn State. Go ahead.
It sets things up too in the future to where other teams that they're facing, their opponents, are not going to be able to just play prevent or anything like that. They're going to have to stay true to the run.
Get it on film. So, exactly.
Yeah. So I just
makes a big difference.
Yeah, and so I think moving forward, defenses are not going to really know how to handle Washington. So I think that was really important for them to do that this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Penn State at Northwestern. This one started off mighty slow, pretty close there at halftime, and then Penn State does what good teams do. They come out and they squash a bug. If I'm going to get picky about this, I'm going to say, and I say picky as in win a Big Ten title or national championship, those types of bones to pick. If Penn State's going to get to that level this year, I feel like I need to see a little bit more from that offensive line getting a push. And I also feel like I need to see a wide receiver one emerge. I know they would say that Lambert Smith is that guy, but I don't know. I think he would be a really good number 2 on most teams. And I feel like you're kind of putting a round peg in a square hole there. But we're going to see, because at the end of the year, we've got a trifecta of these Big Ten East teams that are gonna face off, and I can't wait for that. And the last one in the top 25 that we didn't talk about, Michigan at Nebraska. Not going to spend a lot of time on this. Nebraska is about as inept on offense as it's going to get. And Michigan just continues to kind of run whatever program they want to run, work on whatever they want to work on during the week. And J.J. McCarthy's got his girl down on the sideline, smooching on his girlfriend on the sideline of the game, and pretty disrespectful there. I felt like, I don't know. It was interesting to see what goes on over there at Michigan. They're pretty quirky over there, but hey, 45-7, you can't argue with the result, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Not much to take away from that one, but I know you're going through the top 25. A team that's in our top 25 that's not in the AP top 25 is Texas A&M. Did you happen to check that game out with them against Arkansas at all?
Yeah, I did, and I'll go ahead and pull up their stats and stuff and look at it real quick. But I got to check some of this out. I mean, I thought Max Johnson looked really good Texas A&M,
Yeah.
and this team looked really good with his pocket presence and everything. Obviously you lose some mobility and things like that, not having Connor Wegman, but they look like they just were chugging right along, and honestly, the locker room looked like it may have responded positively to this change. What did you think?
I agree with as far as the locker room response. I think that Max Johnson is a really good leader. And he did have 3 turnovers, fumbled the ball a couple times, gave up an interception, but that was the only thing that kept Arkansas in this game. When you look at Texas A&M's defense, I thought it was really elite in this game. They gave up 174 total yards. That is pretty damn stingy. So, but between that, and then I thought that Johnson did some nice things, right? But gotta secure the football more, and he will. He's not going to have 3 turnovers every game or anything like that. But the other thing notable was Aniyah Smith had a punt return for a touchdown. But yeah, a pretty complete game. Texas A&M doesn't seem to be missing Wegman very much.
Yeah.
And now you really look at A&M as potentially the best team in the SEC West. And I guess this coming week it's really going to decide it. We've got Texas A&M and Bama this week, and that's going to kind of decide who's going to win the West at this point, and I'm excited to watch that game. And if Texas A&M is able to pull it off, which I think they are, I really think that this team matches up well with Bama. I think it's going to be a really close game regardless, but
and this game's close every year, it seems like, too.
Yeah. These are 2 really good defenses, and 2 offenses that are still kind of like figuring things out. I think Alabama has more of an identity, but that has more to do with them having a healthy quarterback all season long. Obviously, Wegman coming out at Texas A&M changes things a little bit, but yeah, this week in the SEC, you've got the favor to win the SEC West in Alabama, taking on the number 1 contender in Texas A&M. And on the other side, you've got the favor in Georgia in the East. You've got the favor in Georgia taking on the number 1 contender in Kentucky at this point. So this is a huge week for the SEC, and I think it's going to end up being what decides who goes to the SEC championship. So
I got a feeling those 2 games are going to
watch.
be. I got a feeling those 2 games are going to be bomb, dude. I think they're going to be both really close games. I don't think any of those 4 teams are running away with anything.
No.
And I can't wait to look at the lines and break that down with everybody later this week. So we hope that you will come on back, hit that subscribe button for us, hit the like button, come on back, watch some more content with us, and we're going to have probably a live show later this week, and I'll put the we'll definitely have a show, but we'll see if it's live or not. But if we do, we want you to come join the show, come talk some football with us, tell us how we're wrong. We're going to have a top 25 coming out later this week. Just tons of content to enjoy as we go into an awesome, awesome slate for week 6. But for now, for the First and Long College Football Show and the First and Long College Football World Headquarters, I'm Marcus. That's Mason. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night.
Thanks. Have a good night.